Okay, so the last day of week 3, reality check. Today we're focusing on team building. So what's important to know about team building is that we choose the people that are in our lives, and based on our strengths and weaknesses, we want to have people who are compatible with us, and also who are good at our weaknesses, so that it elevates us. We're social beings, and so the point of that is to make sure that you can create what you want to create. People who are in alignment with your values, your priorities, you're moving in the same direction or a similar direction. So we want people that are going to make things easier for us, right? Because life doesn't have to be a struggle. That's kind of like these limiting beliefs, like I can achieve something but it's always very hard for me, like that's a perfect example of that. So we want people that are going to help us achieve our goals and our definition of success. Right?
Yeah. This is something I had to look at really hard when I started thinking about these things, and really when I got clean, because I did some really soul searching about why I wanted to be around the people that maybe weren't good for me, maybe didn't have the best interest for me, when I was doing all kinds of crazy things. Everybody wanted something from me, and I wasn't always getting something.
And real fast, we have this need of belonging, right? A need of belonging, and so it's just identifying, like, who do you want to belong with?
Right.
Who do you want to belong with?
Right, connection and belonging. And so, we all have that kind of underlying explanation, biological explanation for why we just gravitate towards people if there's no one else around that may be not good for us. And I experienced that. And so I realized, while that was the case, if I was unconscious of it, I could also be hyper aware of who I choose and how I choose them, and really, build a good team. And so, I set out with that in mind, and started just, finding people who I respected to start with, and who, like you said, had similar priorities, goals, life trajectories, if you will, and just talking to them. It's these things don't happen overnight. You don't get a good team. Usually, you find a piece, and it can sound a little stiff or strict, but they can get replaced, if you will, if you find somebody else who fits better, because there's just a lot of people out there, and until you know what you're looking for, which requires you to look at yourself really hard, you don't really know what needs you have to fill, or what your weaknesses are.
And it's evolving, right? It's ever evolving. And so we were just talking about this right before the video, and a good place to start is 5 people you spend the most time around. And it doesn't matter what area of life you see them, but you'll know, like, who do you see the most out of everyone, and then you can start looking at what they're adding to you. We talked about that, right? If they're taking energy from you or adding energy to you, and what are they supporting, and what are they promoting, and how are they fitting your needs and propping you up, because that feedback loop, you'll be able to do the same for them. And so you don't necessarily have to look at it both ways, like what you're going to do for them. That's their job. Their job is to find that, and then your team, and you'll gravitate.
Yeah, there's going to be some people who, it's not like a puzzle. They might fill one thing for you, and you don't spend a lot of time with them, but they're really important and fill their role, just like you might do for somebody else. There's people for you who do one thing.
And the best way to start to analyze this, right, is to look at those 5 people and just see where they're at. And when you can create a system to measure, the needs you have, which we've already been doing this with you guys, so you have the foundation by now. And so when you can pick a person and see what they're fitting and feeling for you, then you can decide what you need and want in the future. Maybe you do want the same person, or maybe you decide that, one of those people are not going to be in your best interest to have them around you as much, right? So that's when boundaries come into place. And boundaries are impossible to implement if you don't have self-esteem, if you don't know your values, if you don't know your priorities, if you don't know your expectations or unrealistic expectations or your goals. And so all of this is building on each other, and it's super important to be able to identify where you're at with your team, because your partner is going to be the number one person in your team. And so, you will unconsciously be doing this work. And so we're helping you get rid of the chatter, get rid of other people's beliefs, other people's feelings, other people's judgments, and kind of just clear the way for you to make the decision yourself.
Right.
Yeah, you make the decision.
Yeah, I mean, it can be difficult because there's a lot of options as far as people, and we have a hierarchy of needs, and some people don't know where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't really know where you're at and you haven't identified your needs, which goes right along with values and all those things, then you might unconsciously be filling a need with somebody that really isn't helping you with anything, and they might be taking away from you. And so they're never going to tell you that because they don't have that ability or capability, and it's not their job. It's your job to figure out those things for yourself and then fill your needs based on what's best for you. And what you've talked about in the past about yourself is it took a lot of work for you to fill some of your needs that that you couldn't get met through a partner, I guess. And so you would do those, and it would just take a lot of effort and energy and time. And so it can be, if you do the work now, if you're able to get inside yourself and really evaluate, it'll save you a lot of time in the long run.
Yeah, and I was gonna say it's a management of resources, right? Like if Kyle and I share our resources, it goes a lot longer, a lot further, a lot longer. And so when you can get people on your team that promote the same direction, the same passion, the same message or lifestyle, then your life gets a whole lot easier because you're sharing and you're creating that community and that connection, and it's stronger. And so I guess we would just invite you to look at who are the people you have in your life, who are the people you're choosing to be around, and why, right? Like those are really big ones, and then the rest of the information will come. And I think this will be a good time. Next week we'll have to do an extra video about vibrational contracts. And
Absolutely.
so these, real briefly, like we get into these relationships that enable each other, and it's a feedback loop. And so they're not always healthy, they're not always productive. And so just recognizing that that's a thing helps you kind of acknowledge why you end up getting stuck in certain relationships, because I think everybody can agree that you kind of get stuck. But having the foundation that we've been working on the last couple weeks, it gives you the confidence to make these bigger changes or to just attempt something new, right?
Yeah.
And the idea is to be not be living a passive life.
Right. Active participant is one of my favorite things to say.
Being active in your life and choosing the people who are around you. Like you're choosing your life, you're choosing the direction, you're choosing the people, and you're choosing the meaning behind what you're doing, which makes you feel a lot stronger.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one thing that we've talked about in the past, it was kind of a big realization, was that once you start to shift your self-esteem, you'll attract a lot more people, and you'll have to do these kind of boundaries and walls to protect your energy, protect yourself, protect your values, and so options are a good thing, but too many options can be bad if you aren't willing to make difficult decisions for yourself.
Yeah, and when you know the story behind it, it makes those decisions much easier. I think I brought this story up earlier in some of the other videos, but there was a time that I just accepted any kind of attention because I liked attention. It made me feel good, and it filled some of my needs. And then after I started doing a bunch of work on the stories I tell myself, my values, priorities, my self-esteem, and Kyle and I got together, I realized that, not all the attention was good attention, and it was pretty unnecessary because it wasn't really doing anything for me. And I was just showing up, kind of letting other people
dictate your time.
Dictate and kind of control what I was doing. And it was really interesting to learn that. And so understanding that, gave me so much power, and it gave me permission. It gave me permission to make different choices. And that's kind of what we're getting at, is that, you know, you deserve the permission and you already have it. It's kind of just like,
A limiting belief.
yeah, it's a limiting belief. And so we're just, you know, slowly pulling you out of it. So, all right, well, that's the rest for today.